Hello everybody, my name is Lil Burrs. I am a speedrunner and moderator for the game Space Marine 2. Today's video will be a guide on how to speedrun Operation Number 4, Reliquary. Reliquary is the second and final operation where we have to kill a big bad boss at the end. Now I don't include termination in this because while you do fight a boss at the end of termination, we don't find it in the conventional means like we do with the Hive Tyrant and the Helldrake respectfully. Now, before we get into the actual operation itself, let's talk classes. Whether you're playing solo or co-op, no matter the difficulty, you will always bring the tactical class, as the Auspex scan is much needed for the Helldrake. First, I will cover solo play. Solo play at the lower difficulties, you will just bring the Plasma Incinerator through the entire operation. Though, if you are not comfortable with the Plasma Incinerator, you can bring the Melter Rifle through the majority of the operation and then change to the Plasma Incinerator at the loadout pod just before the Helldrake fight. Now, the reason we bring the Plasma Incinerator over the Bolt Rifle with the Grenade Launcher is because actually on minimal difficulty, you can actually two-shot the Helldrake quicker than you can using the Grenade Launcher with your Auspex scan, and you're talented into the extra precision calibration and the expert timing perks respectfully. Now, for solo play on higher difficulties, I still do recommend the Plasma Incinerator. The reason being is that the bots don't help you at all killing the Helldrake for the most part. They will just kill the other enemies that are around you. So the chances of you killing the Helldrake in one cycle with one scan using the bolt rifle with the grenade launcher is pretty small. So while you do get a big burst with the grenade launcher, the more consistent DPS is the Plasma Incinerator. Because if you get unlucky with your ammo box spawns in the Helldrake room, the bolt rifle after the grenade launcher is empty is considerably less DPS than just using the Plasma Incinerator throughout the entire fight. Now let's go over co-op. As I said earlier, the tactical class is required, so someone on your squad must play this class. For lower difficulties, I still recommend the Plasma Incinerator because you can still two-shot it even on co-op. But at the higher difficulties, I actually recommend using the grenade launcher as you can focus fire the Helldrake in one cycle with one scan and immediately kill it. Now the other members of our squad are going to be running the heavy class with the heavy Plasma Incinerator and the sniper with the Lost Fusel rifle. These two combined with the tactical using the grenade launcher are the single highest DPS that we can output in one scan. Doing this should be able to one-shot the Helldrake in one cycle with one scan, no problem. Now let's head into the actual operation itself. Now we're inside the operation itself. The first section is pretty linear, but I do want to mention this specifically. After we drop down, we're confronted with two paths, the left path and the right path. The right path, through like the graveyard where all the headstones are, is the fastest path. It's pretty much a straight shot to the first door, so take the right path to save time. Now that we've gone through the graveyard, I do want to mention this one thing at the very first door. So most runners I see run this level, and they get to this section and they immediately run to the button and they stand there waiting for their bot teammates to come into the room so they can open the door. The problem is that the assemble point is actually on this like little like metal plate right here. So if you actually run down and go near the button, sometimes the AI will kind of just sit outside the room and kill enemies, wasting a ton of time. So I recommend sitting on here, wait till your AI come in the room, and then click the button. Now that we've gotten through the first door, we get to this section of the operation. I'm not going to lie to you guys, this section is a massive headache to get through, and all the RNG possibilities is just too many for me to go over in this video. It's probably in the thousands, and if I were to try to record every single possibility, this would be a 6-hour video, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to kind of give you the tips and tricks to get to this and the time slots you need to roughly hit to have a competitive time. So while discussing this section, I'm going to use some verbiage here to kind of make it easier to understand. So the way I'm going to describe the adjacent rooms from this like console is this is the upper left, bottom right, upper right. So for the first part of this section where we have to find a non-burnt out fusion core, I would say that the upper left room is probably the worst one to get, as majority of the bodies are pretty deep inside this room. But it's all kind of dependent on RNG. I've gotten the fusion core as little as 2 bodies, but I've gotten as most as like 5 or 6, so it really depends on what number you get it at. But if I had to pick one room that's probably the best, it's probably the bottom left, as most of the bodies are pretty close to the door to get back. So upper left is probably the worst, bottom left is probably the best, while the other two are not terrible, but they're not the best either. The time we're looking to get to fix the console, if you're playing solo, it's going to be around the 3 minute mark-ish, give or take. If you're playing co-op, you can kind of get it between the 2.5 minute to 3 minute mark-ish, but again, it's all pretty reliant on RNG and what body you can get it at. But co-op, it does get a little bit easier because multiple people can check multiple bodies at once, so you should consistently get a lower time on co-op. So 2.5 to 3 minutes for co-op, and solo is probably going to be around the 3 minutes, maybe a little above 3 minutes. I have the world record for the fastest time for this, and I fixed the console by myself on solo at about 3 minutes. Now, the second part of this section is the more aggravating section, as we do have to escort the servo skull around while he scans the bodies till he finds the right one where he can come back and open the door. Now, again, it's all based on RNG and the number of bodies he will scan. I've gotten as little as 2 and as most as 5 or 6, so pretty similar numbers for the fusion core. The best room to get for the servo skull is the bottom left, as most of the bodies he scans are pretty close to the door, and the worst one is the upper right, as it has 2 floors, and he'll constantly go from the top floor to the bottom floor to the top floor to the bottom floor over and over again, and it's a considerable time loss because he's really slow. One thing I do also want to mention is if you can keep the path clear for the servo skull, he'll stay moving pretty consistently. But anytime any enemy comes in front of him, he will stop until you basically kill every enemy in front of him. So try to consistently keep the path clear. So the time we're looking for here to get out this door, if we're on solo, it's going to be around the 6 minute mark, maybe the 6:15 mark. In my solo run, I got out this door in about 5 minutes and 45 seconds. So you can get around the 6 minute mark, maybe the 6:15 mark. You're on a pretty good pace run. Co-op can probably even do faster than this because you're going to save some time in the fusion core section. But the servo skull section is just going to bog you down as it will on solo and co-op because it's still escorting it around, hoping you get good RNG for the bodies. But I would say around the 6 minute mark is probably a good pace run at the store. Now that we've gotten through the headache that is the last section, the rest of the operation is pretty linear and easy. The bridge section here where the Helldrake will spew his Hellfire, the strat you would do is pretty reliant on the difficulty you're playing. So if you're playing on the minimal difficulty, you're just going to beeline it through the bridge as fast as you can. You're not going to worry about these like alcoves at safety, as the Hellfire doesn't do that much damage and the knockback is pretty minimal compared to running through these alcoves. On the higher difficulties, you will use the alcoves because the fire does do a lot of damage, and if you take 2 or 3 of them, you will knock you down. So this section, depending on what you're doing, minimal, you're going to run through, not care about the fire. High difficulties, you're going to care about the fire, using the safety alcoves, and get to the next room as quick as possible. Now that we've gone through the bridge section, we get to the Helldrake fight. Now the Helldrake fight is actually a pretty simple fight. You're just going to hit the consoles with their corresponding lit up sigils on the panes of glass above him. If you're playing solo, you will have to hit all the consoles yourself. While playing on co-op, you can spread yourselves out and hit all the consoles at one time. The second the last console is hit and he becomes vulnerable, you're going to immediately scan and just dump everything you have into him to try to one-phase him. And that's the entire operation, guys. Reliquary is a pretty straightforward operation. The only part that you're really going to be resetting a ton on is that the fusion core and the servo skull part. Other than that, it's pretty linear. You're just going to run from point A to point B and then get to the Helldrake fight and hit the consoles and then dump all your damage as you can. I want to thank you all for watching this video. Good luck on your runs and happy hunting.